Kai wanted to lay down. He wanted to just collapse and stop fighting. Hood was beating him badly. Kai had never been in so much pain before. And his body was begging him to just give up. But Kai stood his ground, on shaky legs. Because if this thing beat him, then it would go after everyone else. And he couldn't let that happen. Once again, Kai's head rushed forward and tried to bite at Hood, but Hood once again easily dodged his attack. "Weak," Hood said, as he got ready to attack Kai once more. "Shum." And then suddenly, Ochako zipped in behind Hood, coming out of seemingly nowhere, with pink lightning cascading off her body, and her hair raised up from all the energy. Jupiter smash. Crack 'em. With the power of 100% full cowling, Ochako punched Hood, and Hood went flying towards the ground like a lightning bolt. Boom! Hood hit the ground so hard it created a small earthquake. The impact caused the earth to distort like a wave, rising up and moving out of the way. The Noma was left in the middle of a massive crater, most of its body either annihilated or utterly crippled. And while it was regenerating, Nara came in, as XLR-8, and stuck a piece of AKA inside him. What? Hood said as AKA started taking over its mind. Soon its eyes turned blue, and it finished regenerating. It came under AKA's full control. Ahahahaha. Yeses. AKA/Hood cackled. So much power. AKA? Is that you? Kai asked, looking down at the mind-controlled Nomu. That's right. Don't worry, I'll make them suffer for you. Just rest now. Ahahahaha. AKA/Hood cackled evilly. Thanks, Kai said tiredly, before he collapsed onto the ground, creating another small earthquake, as he let himself fall into unconsciousness. Nara rushed in with Eri under her arm, setting her down next to Kai. Eri immediately touched Kai's neck and activated her quirk. Kai's body was enveloped in a green glow, and within a second, all of Kai's wounds were healed. You really are just the most overpowered thing on Earth in a tiny package, huh? Nara said, looking at Kai's fully healed body. Eri blushed once again. Let's keep going. We need to heal everyone. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX stand, with Konashir staring her down. Kurogyari was off to the side, and with him there, her options both in offense and defense were drastically reduced. TCH really wish I could have done this without the unwanted third party, but Konashir grabbed her sword with both hands, and held it up towards the sky, before pouring a massive amount of energy into it, causing the energy to erupt into the sky like a beacon. This is where it ends, father. Kurogyari looked closely, ready to create a portal if Sai tried anything. Too bad all the looking around in the world wouldn't have prepared him for what was next. Ak! Kurogyari suddenly cried out in pain, as something hit him in the stomach, causing him to stumble back. Huh? Konashir and Sai looked over at Kurogyari, wondering what just happened. Waga! Kurogyari cried as he was attacked multiple times by that same invisible force. Hagakure! Sai's eyes widened, as she realized what was going on. She had an opening. With Kurogyari distracted, Sai opened up a bunch of portals, high above Konashir, as many as she could, before shooting explosive swords out of them, down at Konashir. Hell's rain! Kanashi's eyes widened, and by the time she looked up, the swords were already on her. Kaboom! Konashir was swallowed in an absolutely massive explosion that shook the earth and scorched the ground, and everyone around had to look away so as not to be blinded. And when it died down, Konashir was on the ground, unconscious and badly burnt. Ack! Sai collapsed onto one knee, utterly exhausted. Thank you, Hagakure. You're welcome. Toru shouted back, seemingly giving away her position in front of Kurogyari. Foolish girl, you have Kurogyari was about to open a portal underneath the girl when he heard Shigaraki speak to him. Why haven't you finished her off yet? Asked Shigaraki's voice impatiently behind him. I am trying. Kurogyari didn't get to finish his sentence, as suddenly he lost all control over his body. Because the person speaking behind him wasn't Shigaraki, it was Shinso, using his voice modifier. Finally, I got this pain in the ass off the board, Shinso said. Now, it's time we wrap things up. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX exhaustion, her body covered in wounds. "This fight is over," Hit said, before disappearing and showing up behind Sori, ready to strike her in the back of the head. And then he felt his legs being swept from under him. "What?" Hit's eyes widened, as he fell to the floor, and activated his quirk, stopping time before Sori could get in a counterattack. He rolled off the floor and jumped back onto his feet, a good distance away from Sori, before deactivating his quirk. And then immediately getting a kick to the stomach. Gah! Hit cried, as Sori's foot impacted him so hard, blood came flying out of his mouth, and he skidded back a few feet. Hit clutched his stomach, and looked up at Sori, who was smirking confidently at him. How? Yeah, it took me a while to figure out your quirk. Sori chuckled. Here's my guess, your quirk stops time, but it's pretty exhausting to use, which is why you only use it for a few seconds and keep taking breaks in between your assaults. You also can't actually hit anything while time is stopped, which is why you only start the attack during stop time but finish it in regular time. So, what do you think? She figured out my quirk so easily. Hit thought, staring down Sori with a calm and collected look, although he was starting to get a bit nervous. Just a little bit. Hit then looked around, taking a good look at how the tide of battle was flowing. He didn't like the idea of abandoning his employers, even if he didn't like them. After all, a hitman with a reputation for flaking was a hitman that didn't get hired. But his reputation to take this, and he wasn't particularly fond of this assignment anyway. Then he looked back at Sori and exited his combat stance. Alright, I can see where this is going. And as much as I hate to flake out on a customer, I'm not one to stay with a sinking ship either. Don't tell me you're gonna run away. Sori smirked. Things were just getting good. Afraid so, Hit said, before smirking a bit. I'll admit though, it's been a while since I've had a good fight. Maybe we'll meet again sometime. And with that, he vanished. Sori stayed alert, trying to make sure he didn't try a sneak attack, but after a minute, she concluded that he really did leave. Can't wait for round 2. Sori muttered under her breath, before moving on to take out more villains. Aizawa grunted, as he too was standing on shaky legs. His body was covered in bruises. And his eyes hurt so much. He couldn't even use his quirk. Which meant Weaver was free to use hers. Well, this was pretty dull, mister, Weaver said, as her hands restitched themselves into swords, and she approached Aizawa. So I'm just gonna end this now, so I can play with the OP whatever. Okay? Out of all the people that could end up killing me, it's a little girl in a pink dress. Aizawa thought. Yeah, that sounds like how my life would go. Weaver got close, and raised her sword up, ready to go for the kill. Vroom! When suddenly Ida came running by, with Gammy in his arm, and he slashed into Weaver's back, creating a small gash. Wadash Weaver didn't even get the chance to finish her sentence before the light vanished from her eyes, and she fell to the ground. Dead. Ida came running back towards Aizawa and slowed to a stop in front of his teacher. You came back, Aizawa grunted, trying not to collapse in front of his student. Why? Because you were losing, Gammy said bluntly. I apologize, sensei, but he's right. As heroes in training, we simply wouldn't allow you all to die, Ida reasoned. And also, if you all were to lose, then our chances of survival would lower significantly. Aizawa couldn't argue against that. But he didn't want to praise them for going against his orders either. Eri will be here momentarily to heal your wounds, just hold on just a bit longer, sensei, Ida told him before he started to rev his engines. And stop acting tough, Gammy advised before he and Ida sped away towards his next objective. Ugh. Aizawa collapsed onto one of his knees. Smartass kid. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX oncoming brim, blowing them up in dozens as they poured in from the forest. And then, in a flash, he was completely engulfed in ice. Crack! 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 Smash! Although it didn't stay confined for long, very quickly Nemesis used his overwhelming strength to break its top half free of the ice, although its legs were still frozen over. However, this gave time for Ken, in his heat blast form, Todoroki, and Netsu, to all gather in a triangle formation around Nemesis. Kaboom! All three of them unleashed their most powerful fire attacks, right at Nemesis, engulfing the monster completely, in fire so hot it'd make Endeavor feel insecure. After a few minutes of unleashing hell, the three of them stopped and looked at the massive inferno they had created. Hey, you're sure these things aren't alive, right? Ken asked, sounding a little nervous. Yeah, Yonda and AKA said that these things don't really have minds. Except for that purple one and the hooded one. Netsu confirmed. Oh, sweet. Ken breathed a sigh of relief. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX hand in hand, in a contest of strength. All Might was stronger, for sure. But, he'd taken quite a lot of damage, and used up a lot of his power, while Ruin was good as new thanks to his shock absorption and regeneration. Bam! Ack! All Might grunted as he felt something hit his back. He looked behind him, and saw Janemba, cackling evilly, before he started rapidly hitting All Might in the back from a distance, extending his arms to hit the symbol of peace from a few yards away. Bam! 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 Hit after hit assailed All Might's back, and while Janemba's bunches didn't hurt all that much, they stung more than anything. They were really distracting, and they were allowing Ruin to start winning the contest of strength. Ag! All Might clenched his teeth hard, as Ruin started pushing him back. Ehehe! Janemba cackled, as he gleefully kept up his assault. And then Kiba flew in and kicked him in the side of the head. Ag! Janemba let out a high-pitched cry, as he was flung to the side, away from All Might's battle. Why young Kiba? All Might cried out in surprise. Humph, looks like you can't super armor your way through this problem, All Might. Kiba remarked. But have no fear, we have come to assist you. We? All Might asked. And then, 100% Uraraka came barreling through, and grabbed Ruin, taking away its gravity, and then throwing it aside. Young Uraraka! All Might gasped, shocked to see Ochako exhibit such speed and power out of the blue. No time to explain. I can use 100% of one for all for like 7 more minutes. Ochako quickly filled All Might in. We need to create a cut in this thing. Even a small one will do. A small cut may not work. This monster seems to have regeneration properties. All Might told her. It'll heal before you know it. Rah! Ruin came running back at both of them, but All Might and Ochako were ready. Smash! Both of them rushed at the Nomu and punched it in the chest at the same time. Its shock absorption couldn't handle that amount of force, and blood spilled from its beak-like mouth before it went flying back, flailing across the ground. If all else fails, then just hit it harder. All Might laughed. Ochako sighed. You would say that. Meanwhile, Janemba got back on his feet, looking absolutely pissed. Grrrr. Hey, there. Huh? Janemba looked behind them, to see Hood flying a few feet above him. Why don't you play with us? Ehehehe. Hood/aka cackled. Stump! 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 Janemba looked back to his other side, to see Rhino/aka staring him down. Kiba landed onto Rhino's head and looked down at Janemba with a confident smirk. Prepare to feel the consequences for invading a queen's castle. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX started rapidly scratching his neck, as he saw his plan fall apart in front of him, as his minions either fled, fell, or were taken under enemy control. "So, you're the one behind all this?" Shigaraki froze, before looking behind him, to see Izuku glaring daggers at him. "Izuku Midoriya. And who exactly are you?" Izuku asked, his glare hardening. "My name is Tamura Shigaraki, leader of the League of Villains." Shigaraki introduced himself. "And I was just looking for someone to kill." "Well, you're about as unpleasant as I thought," Izuku said. "Meaning, I have no need to hold back." Shum. Suddenly, Izuku dashed in front of Shigaraki, around and behind him, faster than Shigaraki could react, before striking him in the back, and then repelling him off of his fist. "AGCK!" Shigaraki cried out in pain and surprise, as he was sent flying, smacking against the gates. "What the dash?" Izuku then dashed forward, grabbed Shigaraki's shirt, and yanked the villain in front of him. Eagle uppercut. Then Izuku uppercut Shigaraki, and then repelled Shigaraki's chin away from his fist, causing Shigaraki to fly up into the air. Izuku then repelled himself off the ground, repelling himself off the air under him as he rose, making him fly like a rocket, above Shigaraki. "Thunderstrike!" Izuku cried as he raised his foot above Shigaraki. "Axe kick!" Boom! Izuku axe kicked Shigaraki, while Max repelled Shigaraki, causing the villain to crash down to the ground like a bolt of lightning, making a small crater as he landed. Ag! Shigaraki spat out blood, as the wind was knocked from his body, and he felt his bones break from the impact. And it only got worse, as Izuku repelled himself down at max speed, and knee Shigaraki in the gut so hard buried him even deeper into the ground. The last thing Shigaraki saw before he passed out was Izuku's emerald green eyes staring down at him. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX and hitting him with synchronized attacks, overwhelming its shock absorption and its regeneration as they beat the artificial monster all around the yard. Slam! Ruin crashed down into the dirt, creating a massive crater and kicking up huge clouds of dirt. Rag! Ruin groaned weakly as its regeneration tried to keep up and heal its wounds. As Ruin got onto its legs, suddenly, half its body was frozen over by Todoroki. Uraraka! Now! Todoroki shouted at his classmate. Right! All Might! Break it open! Ochako told her teacher. All right. All Might charged forward and smashed through the iced-over part of the Nomu, destroying half of its body. Ochako then rushed forward, taking a piece of AKA out of her pocket and shoving it in its regenerating bloodstream. As Ruin's body finished regenerating, its eyes turned blue, and it stopped moving. AKA? Ochako hesitantly walked up to the beast. Are you in control? Ruin/AKA nodded, still unable to speak with this body. Phew. Ochako wiped her forehead, before turning to Todoroki and giving him a thumbs up. Young Uraraka, I'm afraid I'm a bit confused? All Might walked up to Ochako with a confused expression. Oh right, you don't know about AKA, Ochako said. Well, just know that we have this thing under control now. I'll explain after we dash. Gah! Everyone looked over to the side, to see Janemba laid out on the ground, covered in wounds. And in front of him were Hood, Rhino, Kiba, and Aizawa now fully healed and using his quirk to keep Janemba from breaking itself up, stretching, or regenerating. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr. And then growled as it got back up to its feet. And then Ruin/AKA rushed over behind it and grabbed it by its arms. Ah! Gah! Raph! Ag! Janemba struggled to try and escape Ruin's grip, but it was a fruitless effort. Kiba grinned as she took a piece of AKA out of her pocket and walked up to Janemba. The vampiric girl shoved the piece into one of the cuts on Janemba's body. Ag! Janemba cried out as he felt AKA crawl up its body and into its brain. Soon enough, its eyes turned blue, and its face broke out into a twisted smile once more. Ahahaha! Now all those who would stand in our way have been defeated. Ahahaha! Janemba/AKA laughed evilly. Are we sure that's a good thing? All Might asked as he looked at the evilly cackling Nomu. Yep. Ochako sighed as she powered down. That's just how she is. If you say so. All Might shrugged. Woo-wee-wee-oh. That's when they heard the sound of police cars and helicopters roll in. This is the police. All villains stand down immediately, announced one of the helicopters. You are under arrest. Amazing how they show up after we finished off all the villains, Shoto noted. Get used to that, young Todoroki. All Might chuckled. Get used to that.